There we, there we got it.
There we go. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We are delighted to have you back again with us for the culmination of our Labinar series. As you all know, this has been a 4-lab series, and each lab has been intended to build on the one that was previous. So we started way back in April with Labinar number 1, which was really about earned income, why it's important for nonprofits, and we dove into kind of all the basics of earned income and social enterprise, which then took us to Labinar number 2, where we focused on exploring earned income opportunities. And then in Lab 3, we talked all about preparedness for earned income and social enterprise, and what does it mean to be poised to take on a venture, whether it's something brand new or growing an existing one. And today, very importantly, is all about developing a business plan for an earned income venture. And in just a few moments, we will dive in and talk about that. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce Mayor Schulman, and she's going to share just a few opening comments with everyone about where we're at and the work ahead. Mayor?
Great. Thanks, Mike. And good morning and welcome everybody. As Mike said, to our 4th and final Labinar. I just want to take a quick moment and thank our dynamic duo of Mike and Larry for leading us all through this very thoughtful and thought-provoking process over these past 4 months. As you can probably tell, Mike and Larry have a real passion for social enterprise and for helping nonprofits to sort of meet their missions by realizing their social enterprise goals. So big thank you to both of them. I also want to thank another dynamic duo that's near and dear to my heart, Betsy Johnson and Monica Kelly, my wonderful teammates, for all of their assistance and hard work in making sure these sessions run as smoothly as they always do. And I will say that it's a little bittersweet for us because Betsy will be retiring at the end of this week after 15 plus wonderful years of service to NSP. As you can imagine, she leaves some very big shoes to fill, and Monica and I are already breaking out the tissues. so best wishes to Betsy. And most of all, I want to thank all of you and congratulate all of you for signing up for this program and for sticking with the Labinars and consultations. We know that it takes a lot of time and energy to explore the possibility of social enterprise for your organizations. And I think it takes a certain amount of entrepreneurial spirit to sign up for a program like this, to put together the team, to do the Labinars and the consultations. So kudos to all of you. We also realize that you're at different points on your social enterprise journeys. Some of you may decide that you're not quite ready, or that the time just isn't right to pursue an earned income venture, and that is perfectly fine. We view that as a great outcome of this program. We also recognize that you're constantly juggling priorities and resources for your organization, and there may be a better time down the road. Others of you may decide you want to forge ahead and you're already on your social enterprise journey, and that's great too. If you decide to move forward with your venture, the next logical step, as we'll talk about today, is to develop a business plan to guide your work. And Mike and Larry will be talking about a program called Live Plan, which is a business planning tool that you can certainly use to help you create that plan. You also have the option, if you wanted, to contract with Mike and Larry directly to help you develop a business plan and an implementation strategy, or you could hire another consultant to help you with this. So a final request that we have is that you please fill out the survey that you'll be receiving after this session, as it will give us some valuable information on the program as a whole, what you thought about it, and what else you feel you need to help advance your social ventures. So again, big congratulations to all of you. We wish you well wherever you are in your social enterprise journeys, and we look forward to hearing about your plans as they continue to develop. And that's all I have, and I'll turn it back to you, Mike and Larry.
Great. Thanks so much, Mayor. And we echo the comments and the compliments to both Monica, Betsy, And of course, to you, Mayor, and the foundation for your support for the initiative. We're always very appreciative of all that you do. And Betsy, yes, we are going to miss you. So this is the home stretch. We again appreciate all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to invest in today's session and our ongoing work as part of the Social Enterprise Accelerator. As always, just a few Zoom housekeeping items. Keep yourself on mute. If you can, rename yourself by just including the name of your organization in your Zoom box. You can click on the top right little 3 dots and hit the rename button. I think we know most of you, but it's always good to just have name and organization. Please do feel free to share your comments and questions in the chat as we're going. We'll respond to as many of those questions as we can. And of course, we will be opening up the Zoom at several points during today's session for some conversation. And of course, we have a number of Zoom poll questions that we're going to share today to solicit your feedback as we go. Feel free to get connected. We'll be on social media again after our session with a group photo. So we love when you like it, share it, and comment. And to that point, let's do our Zoom photo. So if you're off video, please just do us a favor and come on for a moment. And we're going to do, let's see, 2 pictures. So if everybody could look at the camera and give us a smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, one more. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was easy. And now back into our slideshow. All right, you've seen this slide before, but we'd like to just flash it quickly. In these Labinars, we love to encourage each of you to just open your minds and explore possibilities, learn something new, reinforce what you know, and of course, please do have fun. Our goals for today are simple, but continue to build on what we've been doing in our previous labs, which is to continue to gain insight into earned income, this time related specifically to business planning. Each of your organizations has been focusing on your most viable earned income possibilities. Again, you're in various stages. Some of you know exactly where you're going to either evolve and grow something already existing, or where you would like to focus in terms of launching something new. And in terms of the business planning process, we hope to gain a little knowledge, acquire some tools and resources, and be able to apply it to your organization. So we're here today until 11:30. Larry's going to take everybody through just a very brief recap on Lab 3, and then we'll dive into business planning, the why, the what, the how. We'll do a little quick wrap up and next steps, and then we'll be on our way. Okay, so let's start with our first poll question. Monica, I'm going to ask you to launch it. So, thinking about your organization's #1 earned income possibility, which one of the following will be most critical to its success? Strong mission alignment, having LWRCC, leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, culture, developing a business plan, raising needed startup or growth capital, and committing to a dedicated effort over time. Okay. Definitely your responses are clustered in the last 3 options. And we'll give everybody just a moment. Okay, well, love to see that the majority of you have said either developing a business plan, raising needed startup or growth capital, and committing to a dedicated effort over time. Well, you're all correct, because in fact, each of these are really important from our perspective, but it just so happens that today we're going to be talking about the importance of developing a business plan and the various components of it. So let's end the poll and we'll move on. Oops. Okay. With that, we have our quote of the day. This one relates specifically to planning. And while it dates way back and is attributed to a gentleman named Joseph Pulitzer, the publisher, he said, "Put it before them briefly so they can read it clearly so they'll appreciate it, picturesquely so they will remember it, and above all, accurately so they'll be guided by its light." And we absolutely believe that with regard to business planning. And we can't stress enough, which you've heard us say time and time again, that a business plan will help you do this. So with that, Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you to do a little bit of a recap on our last lab.
All right, thank you, Mike. This is going to be the fastest flashback we've had in all 3 sessions or 4 sessions. If you want to move forward, Mike. Hopefully you'll see your picture here. And then let's talk about what's happened since the last lab. So all of your homework included looking and assessing your earned income possibility. Most of you had 1, all of you, most had 2. You looked at how you're going to fund it. Mike and I shared a lot of different ways that you could fund that. We tried to focus on how do you go after dollars that have no strings attached. Many of you are already thinking about who those donors might be, and some of you have actually approached a couple already. Communication, absolutely critical. You all kind of went through that process and talked about communication, who you're talking to, when you might start talking to others. And you assessed your earned income, and are you ready for that? And by doing that, you looked at your LWRCC. And I think this was eye-opening to some of you, understanding that maybe one of these you're a little lacking in, and we talked about how you might be able to bolster that over the next few weeks or months. But most of you are right in line with leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. So thank you for doing the homework, getting it in, and all the conversations we had with you. It was good for us, and hopefully it was enlightening for you. So let's do our second poll question. So what has transpired since our last lab? Thinking about your earned income progress, we significantly advanced our thinking and actions. We made some progress, but there's much more to do. We didn't move the needle much at all, or we had so many competing priorities and no time to think about it. By far the leader so far is we made some progress, but no, there's much to do, which we were hoping number 1 and number 2 would get most of the votes, and we feel bad for that one vote down there who hasn't been able to because they're overwhelmed. So thank you for sharing that. We also agree that there's been progress, and why don't we move on? Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to clear the poll from my screen. Bear with me for a second here. All right. So this signals the really the focus of today's session, and no surprise, when you have a viable earned income possibility or opportunity, again, whether it's for a brand new earned income venture or social enterprise, or for some of you who already have one that is existing, we strongly recommend that you develop a business plan. And again, we've worked with so many organizations in the past that despite having an existing earned income venture, they never really developed a thoughtful and a comprehensive business plan. So again, we'd like to stress that if you've got a new venture that you would like to launch, or you have an existing one, develop a business plan for it. Just another quote to share, that planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. And again, we do firmly believe that. Just starting with a few of the basics in terms of business planning, we just want to run through a couple of terms and definitions so everybody's grounded in the same language. So when we talk about a business plan, we like to define it very simply as a written document that describes in detail how your organization is going to achieve its business goals related to an earned income venture or a social enterprise. And we specifically like it to include detail in 4 areas. So again, because we're all operating in the nonprofit sector, really understanding how this earned income venture is going to contribute to building your mission impact and social return, in addition to the economic side of it. So what will your financial return look like? We also like it to focus on marketing and sales, plus the various operational components of your business. So we'll dive into each of these throughout the session. A business plan has a number of benefits, and just briefly to share some of those, we think it's an important step in really building what will be a successful enterprise. So again, if you've never developed a business plan, even if you have an earned income venture, you will gain from this. It will help you set direction for the future. It'll help you establish standards for success, and it'll also importantly help you define how you want to operate your venture. So again, much benefit to come from developing a business plan. When we work with organizations on a business plan, we like that plan to include a number of sections. Depending on which templates you use for a business plan, they may vary a bit, but typically your plan will start with an executive summary. You'll usually write that at the very end after you've done all of the detail and thinking and sections of the plan. But for anybody who wants to just understand the fundamentals of your plan, that executive summary is so helpful. It should include a section on your organization, who you are, what you do. Also, of course, what your vision and mission is as a nonprofit. It should accurately and thoughtfully describe what is it that you're selling. What's this product or program and service that you have? Who are you selling it to in terms of customer or target audience? What's the sector that you're operating in as part of this earned income venture? Show that you understand it and know where your product or program or service sits within that. Who's the competition or the current alternatives out there that you need to be aware of and understand? What's your marketing plan? What's your sales plan? And ultimately, of course, very, very, very importantly is what's your financial plan? And when we work with organizations on a business plan, we like you to include 3 years of financials. So we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. As Mayor mentioned in her opening comments, there's a business planning template called Live Plan. It is cloud-based and you subscribe to it. They charge a monthly fee or an annual fee, so there's a subscription. It is very, very reasonably priced. And we have found it over the years to be the best thing out there. It's really user-friendly. It walks you through the process. It gives you tips and pointers. It has lots of examples. And it truly is kind of a step-by-step approach to developing a business plan. So again, for those of your teams here who are going to be ready to, take the next step and develop the business plan, we suggest that you go to liveplan.com, walk through it, and if you're so inclined, subscribe and get the business plan underway. Again, when we work with organizations on business planning as part of our consulting practice, we have used LivePlan for years, and we really like it, and the organizations we've worked with really like it. Couple of things just to keep in mind about a business plan. Typically, it's externally focused. It addresses, as I said, a product or a program or a service. And we believe that it can be used in a number of different ways, one of which is for your own benefit to help you build your business properly and plan for it. The other is that you can typically have a document, a very meaty and substantial document that you can share with potential funders or donors or investors as you're looking for that startup or growth capital. We will say that funders, donors, investors really like to see the thinking that you've put into developing a business plan, and it goes a long way in helping to generate that startup or growth capital. A business plan, as I said, it has a detailed financial forecast in it. It does include a competitive and market analysis, and it has a more formal structure and contents to it. We like to just make sure that you understand and can differentiate between a strategic plan and a business plan, because sometimes there is confusion between the two. So just to be clear about that, the strategic plan is really an overarching plan that sets strategic direction for your organization. It's used primarily as an internal planning tool, and it can provide the basis for more detailed planning in a number of areas, which could include business plans for an earned income venture, marketing strategies, funding strategies, and so on and so forth. And we know that a number of your organizations have either recently gone through strategic planning, or some of you are involved in it now or about to embark on it. So again, just having that clarity in terms of the difference between the two. So that is a little bit about the basics of business planning. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Larry to get started on the basics of business planning.
All right. Let's go. So, as Mike said, every business plan, you need to include your vision and your mission. So the vision is really what difference out there will transpire or take place because your organization is existing. So it's that kind of very short sentence. Usually we love to see a vision statement within 5 words. If you can create that, it's like end hunger or stop child violence or whatever it might be. It's a very short sentence that is that vision that you're participating as an organization that you want to see happen. So the mission statement is what's your role? What's your role in making sure that that vision statement can take place? So what's the purpose of your organization? And as Mike and I met with all of you, most of you had vision statements and mission statements. Some of you had confused the mission statement and the vision statement. But I think was clarity there, and all of you are on the right path. So again, a business plan you have to have a very clear vision statement and a mission statement. That's really the first thing. Second thing is, what are you going to sell? What is that product or that service? And all of you have some idea, at least of the top 2 ideas. Many of you are zeroing in on that right now. So it's like, what's the offering? And you need to articulate that offering. So there'll be a worksheet. You always get a worksheet, right? And we'll be talking about this with you on our next call. But how do you articulate that offering? Think about it in a way that if somebody who doesn't know who your organization is or what you're going to sell reads this paragraph or a couple of paragraphs, they have to clearly understand what the offering is. It can't be vague. It can't use jargon. You can't use acronyms. It needs to be very, very clear. So you need to articulate the offering in the business plan. So here's an example. We worked with an organization that was a guide dog center, huge guide dog center actually, and they had 500 people in the community that were raising puppies for them that would rotate into the guide dog center, and only 1 in 10 of the puppies would actually be used as a guide dog. A lot of work went into all these dogs. Well, through all of that, they realized they had a product and as part of their service about raising puppies. So they had created a book and a DVD. It's probably online now, but at that time it was a DVD. And their example is, this book will help you learn the proven techniques that our expert trainers have practiced nearly every day for the last 30 years. Purchase this book will also include, it's a caring choice because 100% of the proceeds go straight to our mission. And it's available in 2 editions. One is which accompanied with the DVD. So that's how they described it. There was probably some more detail once we got into the business plan, but in a very short, concise way, kind of what is it? What does it look like? And where does the money go? So guide dogs. Let's go on to a poll question. Monica, thank you. So how understandable, oops. If you describe your organization's earned income offering to a potential funder right now, how understandable would it be? Clearly defined and easy to articulate, understandable, but it takes a little time to explain, a bit confusing, but we're still working on it. I plead the 5th. We're not ready to share it yet. I don't think any of you are pleading the 5th quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I was trying to read the header on that. That's why it confused me in the beginning. All right. Well, I think most are kind of landing and understandable, but it takes a little time to explain. So over the next few weeks, you have an opportunity to better define that and narrow that prior to our next call. So, and some of you, it's already clearly defined, you know exactly what you want to do. That's awesome. Good. All right. Why don't we move on?
Okay, I'm going to
Thank you all.
clear the poll from the screen and we'll continue. So the next part of a business plan, which is really important after you've described what it is you're going to sell, is to make sure that you clearly define who, excuse me, the who. So this quote, without customers, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And you've heard us allude to this, talk about this, even up to this point in our Zoom consulting sessions. So who will buy it? And we frequently talk about this in terms of defining your target market or your target markets. And we'd like to suggest that you look at it from 2 perspectives. So who will most likely purchase what it is you have to sell? Think about it in terms of the primary audience, and maybe even there's a secondary audience for your product or program or service. And we also like you to think about it through a couple of different lenses. So you can define your target market segments demographically, so looking at things like age and income and gender and things that are demographic in nature. And then you can also think about defining them psychographically in terms of lifestyle and values and attitudes. So, or you can do a combination of the 2. But again, the more you understand and are able to define your target markets, the better off for you as you're getting ready to either launch or grow your earned income venture, depending on where you are. So an example, and this is one way to define your customer segments, is by actually describing an individual. So here's 3 different target market segments, but they've actually been described as a person. So, and I will say this happens to have been for a retail or a resale store in the Palm Beach area for a Dress for Success affiliate agency. And they defined their customers, the first one being a woman named Joy Smith, fashion conscious, stay at home, mom of two, and she is on a clothing budget. So, you know, again, you conjure up an image in your mind of who this woman is. She might be in her late 20s, early to mid 30s, and you get a bit of a sense for her. The next target market segment, a woman named Britt Thomas, she's a student at a local university, and is expected to dress professionally, but she's on a student budget. So, you know, she wants to look good, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of disposable income to be able to spend. So again, this conjures up an image of, you know, who this woman is, you know, psychographically and demographically. And then the last market segment here is a woman named Sylvia Young. She is a 60-something woman. She's a widow, fixed income, but likes to get dressed up to go out. So again, she is in a different both demographic and psychographic segment than the other two, but you can see here how this would be meaningful in terms of defining the markets for Dress for Success. Okay, competitors. So when we talk about competitors, we really like to encourage you and your teams to really dive in and understand who else out there has offerings that may either be direct competitors or they might be a little bit more peripheral. So competitors can be in a number of different sectors. And again, we encourage you as part of your competitive analysis to be pretty thorough and to look for both the likely suspects out there and the unlikely. So there may be nonprofits who are offering competitive offerings. Likely there will be for-profit organizations who have competitive offerings. There may even be, you know, government agencies or other types of organizations that are out there with competitive offerings. This will be part of the worksheet and the homework that Larry alluded to earlier, and you'll have the opportunity to think about and identify who these competitors are. When we talk about the competition, one of the things you'll define as you look at each competitor is what they do well, but also maybe what they don't do so well, which will then help you queue up and think about, with your own product offering, what do you have of unique value that they don't have? And as Steve Martin was quoted as saying, be so good that they can't ignore you. So,
Mike, before,
yeah.
I was just going to add one more thing before we
Yeah.
move on. Sometimes competitors can also be partners. So I know that both Mike and I have talked to some of you about that, you know, you can look at them as competitors, you can talk about why your offering is different, but there might be some partnership opportunities there. So I just throw that out.
Yeah, good point, Larry. Thanks for sharing that. So when we talk about a value proposition, we believe that is fundamentally important for you as you're thinking about what do you offer of unique value with your earned income venture or your social enterprise that will be particularly meaningful for, you know, prospective customers out there. So what benefit will your product or program or service offer to customer prospects relative to your competitors? So, you know, each of us, as we go out and are consumers and we buy various products or purchase various services, we think about what it is we like about them that is, particularly meaningful for us, and why we buy that over, for example, another product or a service. So we have this thing that's a value proposition generator, and this will be part of your homework. But if you've ever done those Mad Libs where you have to fill in the blanks with different words like nouns and adjectives and verbs, this value proposition generator very simply will help you identify what is that unique value that your product or your program or service has, and how it is differentiated from your competition. So again, just, you can see here, you're going to fill in the blanks. Your organization provides, in the next blank, whatever your product or service is, which then you can share what is unique about it, for whom you are going to have this product and sell it to by way of your target audience, and thereby it creates this sort of mission aligned offering that is available unlike your competitors out there. And you'll find that when you actually work on this value proposition, you're probably going to end up with sort of a bit of a long run-on clunky sentence, but then we recommend that you refine it, edit it, and pull it back by taking out extraneous words, and you're very likely going to end up with a pretty strong value proposition. And one thing we like to just make sure you understand here is that this is really intended to be an internal statement, something that you and your teams will use to really help you understand that unique value. Maybe it's a little bit more strategic in nature, but it can then help you think about your messaging, your communications, maybe even your marketing as you move forward in your business planning. So here's an example. This is an organization that we work with in California called the Coalition for Compassionate Care of California, and they are an organization whose mission is helping folks, organizations, individuals address and deal with end of life types of issues. So their value proposition is that they call themselves CCCC. They create and sell a variety of helpful education materials to support healthcare providers in important discussions with patients and their families about serious illness. Designed in a neutral, easy to understand format that's available in 3 languages, these validated tools enable healthcare providers to facilitate person-centered care in a cost-effective manner, unlike the other products that are currently on the market. So again, this is just one example, but it does help you to see how the statement differentiates what they have to sell relative to their competitors. Okay, so that's the value proposition. Larry, I'm gonna turn it back to you to talk about kind of need and demand in the market.
Good. So, part of the business plan is you need to clearly understand your markets, which helps you define them even better. So as we think about markets, there's a number of different kind of sections of the business plan that you need to do some work around. So one of the sections is needs, one is trends, one is growth. So in the needs section, what problems does your product or service offering solve for the customers? So think about, you have a great idea, but there's got to be an issue out there that it's addressing. Kind of what is that problem? We have to clearly define the problem. And in a business plan, we like to see you justify that you have understood what the problem is. So there might be some data sets, there might be some other forms of ways that you can say, this is how we know there's a real need out there, or that there's this problem out there, and why our product or service will help meet that need. So the need out there, you got to clearly define it. Second is trends. So what's happening in the market that that you can predict where that market's going. So think about in the technology area, if you were developing a piece of technology, what trends are happening out there over the next few years that would impact maybe your technology product? Are things more online? Are you using QR codes? I mean, think about the different trends. I mean, Threads just launched a week ago. We couldn't have guessed that a year ago, right? And it's going to kind of take over the marketplace, maybe, as far as Twitter might go away. Who knows? So think about the trends that are out there in your marketplace and kind of what's happening and how might it affect your product or your service. And then think about growth in the market. Is your market, you know, and you might have a couple of different markets that you want to sell your product or your service in. Is the market growing? Are more people or more organizations going to need this and you can justify that? Is it shrinking? You know, is there going to be less of that market? So, wow, maybe that's not the best market to sell into. Maybe there's a different market that might be growing, or is it going to stay flat? You don't really see any change in it at all. But all of these, the needs, the trends, and the growth, once you gather all this information, it really does help you decide which market might be the best to sell into because it has the greatest need, the trends are trending in your direction, and maybe it has some market growth opportunity for you. So understanding the market is really important. So I'll give you an example. There's a group that we worked with in Sarasota that was a botanical garden, and the place sat empty at night. And they were trying to think about what could we do, especially during this summer, to get people more engaged and involved. So they saw the need out there as an untapped need among families with children who seek to visit local attractions during this summer. And of course, it's hot in Florida during the summer, so they had to keep that in mind. I mean, there's Disney, there's other things that you can go to, but you have to travel to get to those places. So in Sarasota, families are looking for something to do. The need was they needed a safe outdoor environment. They wanted some daytime activities and some nighttime activities, varied experiences at different developmental levels for their kids, opportunities for their kids and adults to be outdoors and to connect with nature. They found the need as it had to have some edutainment qualities, very kind of Disney term, but edutainment qualities. There needed to be some fun and engagement. Opportunity for families to give back is a need, another need that they saw out there, and people wanted to join, be a part of a membership group, and have that affinity with their organization. So out of this, they created a nighttime activity that they did once a week, and it went off really, really well. They had food trucks there, they had a band, a lot of families came, and their membership actually increased exponentially. People signed up to the Botanic Gardens. So anyway, market needs. Here's one example. Let's look at objectives. So business objectives. And as Mike said, we like to have a few of them: a mission, margin, operations, and marketing. So as you think about your objectives for your product or service that's kind of rising to the top, what's the mission objective going to be? And we want these to be measurable. So how many people will be affected by what date? So we love it to be framed in a time frame and an impact. So mission would be, 65,000 people will be affected or will participate in our program by the end of 2025. I mean, that would be a great number, but that gives you some idea of mission impact. Margin is difficult to do at this point in time if it's a brand new product or service for you, but what's the return on your investment going to be? How much money will you make? What net might you have at the end? And so you can guess as you're starting to put the business plan together before you get to the financials. The financials will clarify that for you. but we love to see, we'll have X percentage of net revenue every year, or maybe you could come up with a general number, which probably has to be worked on a bit after the budget is complete. Operations, most of you probably have to revise something or hire somebody or do some type of on-site training or get a new software program. So an operational objective might be something around those lines. Marketing might be, getting that website complete or launching your marketing program, or there might be some sales goals that are included in there. So these are the objectives in a business plan, and they really do frame a direction that you take as you're rolling your earned income venture out. And it'll be on your worksheet. So take a good pass at objectives for these 4 areas, and doesn't have to be perfect. We would just like to see a first pass and have a conversation about it. So let me give you an example. This is a group that we worked with. It was a low vision group. So their mission is to contribute to the health needs of a minimum of 5,000 people by the end of 2023 through the sale of relevant and useful vision products. So they had a number and they had an end date, so they could frame it. We could definitely measure that. Their margin is to generate a minimum of 30,000 in net revenue from the sale of health products by the end of 2023, clearly defined. Operations, design the infrastructure needed to support the operations of the online store and pop-up shops by then. So they wanted to make sure that their online store is up and running, and they had some pop-up shops that they could move around, in malls or wherever they were going to go. They actually did pop-up shops in AAA offices. Think about the people who go to AAA to get their triptychs and stuff. It was a perfect target market to sell vision products. And marketing, to add the marketing, communication, and sales resources needed to launch the retail venture by 2023. So in this case, it was some staff and some printing that they needed to do to get the message out, and some kiosk development. So that's an example of something measurable, end dates and some numbers in there, but objectives really important for your business plan. Let's do a poll question. So to what degree does your organization set objectives to achieve measurable goals? For all our program activities, we hold ourselves accountable. For some of our program activities, we hold ourselves accountable. We develop objectives, but rarely hold ourselves accountable. What's an objective again?
I'm not seeing the survey. I don't know if others are.
I am.
I see it.
I see it.
Must just be me.
Okay. Most of you are falling in kind of the top 2 categories. For all of our programs, we hold ourselves accountable. The most folks got some of our program activities, we hold ourselves accountable. So it's just something to think about, that how do you really measure your success if you're not holding yourself accountable to objectives that you set for any program or product or service that you're doing. So accountability, it's important. Thanks, Monica.
So before we move on, we're a little more than halfway through. Does anybody have any questions? We're throwing a lot at you in terms of these various components of the business plan. Does anybody have any questions up to this point that you would like to ask? And if so, please just raise your hand or type in the chat box, and we'll definitely spend some time. Is there anything in the chat box? Just
I answered one of the questions. Reminder on how we can get copies of the slides. They're up. You can go to the website. The link that Betsy has provided, and the slide should be there. And I see Mara has already done that. I should have looked farther, Mara. I would have seen your comment.
Okay. If there are no questions at this point, we'll keep moving, and we'll pause at the end as well for additional questions. So let's keep moving. So the next part of the business plan is this very important component called marketing. Another quote here, this one's from Seth Godin. He said, marketing is a contest for people's attention, which is absolutely positively the case. So how do you generate visibility, awareness, and interest in whatever it is that you have to sell, and being very thoughtful about that. So just by way of quick definition, what is marketing? It's the process of communicating the value of a product or a service to customers for the purpose of selling that product or program or service. And I think each of you and your organizations, to some varying degree, have marketed, certainly, if not your organization, the various entities, components, products, or services that you have. But it does encompass a number of different things, and typically it starts with, what's your brand identity, your brand name, your logo, your tagline. And we encourage every organization that we work with to be intentional and thoughtful about that. If you haven't identified the name, the brand name, created a logo and even a tagline for it, it is a real opportunity. So you can see a sample here of 4 different earned income ventures from organizations that we've worked with, starting with Peepers, which is a retail store to sell low vision needs, part of the Lighthouse organization. The one in the middle, Prospect Riding Center, is a therapeutic horseback riding organization, but they actually sell recreational horseback riding. Habitat for Humanity created a business called Clean Out and Removal, so you can actually hire them to come in, clean out your place or your mother or your father's place, and make sure that it's broom clean, so that for the next folks who move in, they'll be coming to a place that is empty and ready for their move-in. And then the one on the bottom is from the Florida Maritime Museum, and that's for a folk school that offers a number of different classes geared to stepping back in time and teaching people about crafts and culture and community. So a brand name, a logo, and a tagline. We have had access to a number of graphic designers who are very good at this, and they also specialize in working with nonprofits. So if any of you are ever in need, you can certainly reach out. We also know that through the NSP, they have access to Catch-A-Fire. Catch-A-Fire is a great organization to work with on branding. And again, if you've never worked with them and have interest, you can certainly reach out to the NSP team. Your website, of course, is absolutely a critical component to marketing, because it is where oftentimes people will go to learn about your earned income venture and your earned income offerings. So this one happens to be for the Literacy Council in Sarasota, but you can see here from their homepage, they very specifically keyed in on and talked to one of their key audiences for their English as a second language, or ESL programs for businesses. So I'm a small business owner, or work for a corporation, and I quickly can see here that if I need higher educated employees or those with stronger communication skills, I can talk to them about bringing the classroom to my location. And it tells me very clearly, how to take action. So I can call that number. So again, your website in so many different ways is a great opportunity to market, build that visibility and awareness, and offer that messaging to your various target audiences about your product or your program or your service. We'd love to remind you about the beauty of using your email signature to promote a earned income product or program or service. Remember, the bottom of your emails that you send out it's free real estate. and everybody that gets an email from you has the potential to see it. So how could you utilize that in different ways to help build visibility and awareness for your earned income venture? This one happens to be for Peace River Wildlife Center. They rescue, rehabilitate, and release animals back into the wild, and they also educate. So here at the bottom of this email signature, it says, "Don't miss the launch of our exciting new e-store coming on May 1st. So again, think about if you're not currently using your email signature to promote your earned income venture, how might you do that? Of course, social media is something that's near and dear, I think, to each of our hearts in terms of our organizations and how we communicate. And as it relates to promoting your various earned income ventures, make sure you take advantage. Remember, it's free, and that's a great thing. And it does allow you to change your message with frequency, to push it out to folks who are followers on your social media. We know that a number of your organizations have a large following, and that's a good thing. So the more eyeballs that you have on whatever your earned income venture is on your various social media platforms, the better. One thing to keep in mind here is that, for example, if you have an offering that is more geared to businesses, corporations, and others that would have interest in your product or program or service, make sure that you're on LinkedIn. So promoting an earned income venture on LinkedIn to an audience that would be on LinkedIn is an important thing. So oftentimes we find that organizations are good at Facebook, Instagram, sometimes Twitter, that they may not be on LinkedIn. But again, be sure you're thinking about the various platforms and where they might fit. Press releases. So we do believe very strongly in the power of PR and media relations. And so how can you create a story that has news value, write it in the form of a press release, and then distribute it oftentimes either online through a service like PR Web or PR Newswire, so that it actually gets disseminated on the web. That way, reporters, editors oftentimes can see it as they're going through and looking for news that they want to share in their various outlets on a given, day or week. You certainly can write your own press releases if you have somebody on your team who's able to do that. Oops, hang on, I've got a Zoom poll that just popped up, oddly enough. You can certainly do that with your own staff if they're on hand and available. If you have access to a PR firm or a consultant, that's another option. But again, the idea here is if you have something newsy and of value that you can share, get it out there, because oftentimes the media will pick it up. We've worked with a number of organizations in Greater Hartford, Stock Stars as part of HARC. They were very, very good about getting news out about their retail store and got a lot of local press, both in newspaper, Hartford Current, Business Journal, television, and so forth. So again, the idea here is if you share it, you will likely get interest.
Mike, can I share one thing?
Yeah.
We worked with an organization in Alabama a few years ago, and they did a press release on their project or their business, and it was a very small organization, like 1.5, 2 FTEs. Los Angeles Times picked it up, sent somebody to Alabama to interview them, and then they got a big article in Los Angeles Times, which shocked them, and they received some extra donations because of that. Some significant donations. So you never know, even though you're a very small organization, by doing a press release and getting it out there, who might see it and the impact that you might make on people out there. So just a small example.
Yeah, and I think, to that point too, another thing that online press release distribution can do is it can actually raise your position on Google page 1 for whatever the key words are that you want to be searched for by folks, who might be on the web looking for something that is similar to what you have to offer. So again, because it's online, it's distributed online, PR Web, PR Newswire will help elevate your position on Google page 1. So it's another benefit that comes along with that. So when we talk about marketing, I've shown you a number of examples of different ways that you can market, but also an important part of marketing is your messaging. So what are you going to say and how are you going to deliver the message? So being thoughtful and being clear about what's your message and what do you want to say? And, again, we always encourage you to sit down and think about that. So whether you're posting on social media, whether you're advertising, whether you're doing a press release or a combination of all those things, being clear about what the message is that you want to convey in each of those different types of marketing. And then, of course, thinking about all those various places where you're going to disseminate that messaging, where are you going to promote it? So I showed you some examples, but here's some others. So in addition to your website, what does your advertising look like if, in fact, you are going to do paid advertising? Are you going to have collateral materials? Are you going to have a brochure? Are you going to have a rack card or some other kind of printed material? We talked about press releases. We talked about social media. E-blasts, again, it's a great way to get promotional and marketing information out to your various audiences, especially if you have a database as part of, whatever you're using, whether it's Constant Contact or MailChimp or some other form of communication. So e-blasting, again, it's free. It's another way to get in front of people with your product or program and service and actually sell. If you have internal newsletters, external newsletters, those are another great vehicle to promote and market your products or programs or services. Again, that's free, and you can certainly vary your content with some degree of frequency. Some organizations we work with have monthly newsletters, some have quarterly newsletters, some even have weekly newsletters. So again, just depending on what yours looks like, be thinking about that messaging. If you have key partners and strategic alliances that are important to your earned income venture, making sure that you've shared and looked for ways to leverage the ability to market with those partners. Again, oftentimes they will, on your behalf, promote whatever it is you have to sell if it makes sense for them. Let's not forget too about the value of word of mouth. Word of mouth for marketing purposes can be extremely valuable, especially if you have stakeholders, folks who are affiliated with your organization that are good at sharing. So be thinking about that. And then lastly, we think conferences and events can be very, very helpful for marketing, again, depending on what sector you're in and, the degree to which there are people that you can be with, talk to, and share what it is you have to sell. So all good things to think about. And of course, these will be part of that worksheet that you will actually do as part of your homework prior to our 4th Zoom consulting session. So that's marketing, but let's share a poll question that is specifically geared to marketing. So if your organization's marketing approach were an animal, which one would it be? So cheetah, we're fast and responsive to reach our clients and customers. Camel, we get the job done, we're slow and steady. Kangaroo, our marketing hops around and sometimes shows a return. And lastly, a monkey, we're easily distracted so we don't get much done. Again, all marketing, we like to tie marketing activities to the various animals. So it looks like, even though we've got responses for all four, that the majority are gravitating toward the kangaroo. Getting hops around and sometimes shows a return. So that's a visual. And then I think in second place here is the camel. We get the job done. We're slow and steady. And then we've got a few with number one, the cheetah. We're fast and responsive to reach our clients. And we've got a couple of the monkeys. We're easily distracted, so don't get much done. I think the key here is that wherever you fall here, however you answered this, the beauty of marketing is, you can always dial it up. And oftentimes it's not that hard to do. But again, you have to be intentional, you have to be thoughtful about it, and you really have to take advantage of the tools that are available to you. So be thinking about, as you're working on this homework, all those various ways that you currently market your organization, and maybe even any earned income activities that you may have now, but also ways that you can be thoughtful to drive your marketing, your visibility, and your awareness going forward.
Mike,
Okay.
there's a question
Yeah.
from Trisha. Is there a mix of cheetah and camel? I'll leave that one up to you to answer.
Is there a mix, a hybrid? Yes. Good question, Trisha. We like to think that there are different types of situations for marketing. And in the end, as an organization and as a team, sometimes, you do have to be fast and responsive. Other times you can be a little bit more, slow and methodical. But in the end, be thinking about all those ways that you can market and move things forward. So I know it was a bit rhetorical and intended to be fun, but it's actually a good question.
Mary came up with the name of Chimel.
I like that.
Maybe I didn't say that right, Mary. But...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one we want to talk about is sales strategy. And oftentimes marketing and sales go hand in hand, but we do like to encourage you to think about the difference between marketing and sales. So when you think about sales, just a couple of things. One, your sales plan is ultimately what you do, the activities that you undertake, the process that you go through to sort of make the, proverbial cash register ring, to close the deals that your marketing plan helps you queue up and open. So again, marketing is really about generating activities to help you generate visibility, awareness, and interest in whatever product or programs or services you have. Sales is the actual process and steps that you will follow to generate the business. So, we think about things like, you can see this visual here is what we call a sales funnel. If you've ever thought about the kind of the process of selling something, it typically will go through this funnel, starting with who are your, various prospects or your leads, and then not just having kind of the list of them, but then starting to qualify them to see, is this individual, this organization, or this entity, do they have the money? Do they have the wherewithal? Do they have those things? And in turn, are they a qualified lead? And then matching kind of them with the needs they have and how your product or service can help them. And then giving them a proposal or whatever it might be to purchase what you have to sell. And then, sort of closing the deal and actually logging it as a sale. So what are those steps for your earned income venture that you would ultimately have to follow to close the sale? Who is it that's going to sell whatever it is you have to sell? Do you have to hire somebody who's a sales, a seasoned salesperson? Do you have the wherewithal within your own team and your organization right now? Or do you have to contract, with somebody or some firm to help you sell whatever it is you have. How are you going to process and track that order once you've received it, to move it through that system? If you get a call, if you get an inquiry, if you get somebody who legitimately wants to purchase it, how are you going to turn it into a sale? And then, of course, how are you going to keep in contact with your customers and clients over the long haul? So once you've sold something to somebody, whether it's a product or a program or a service, keeping them engaged, because oftentimes your existing or past customers are going to continue to help fuel your business moving forward.
Mike,
yeah, sales process. Yeah.
Mike, can I just add one thing?
Uh-huh.
So something good to think about is, how do you do sales right now for anything you're doing? And if an inquiry comes in, say to your info on your website, who gets it? How often are they going to look at it? Who do they send it to? How long does it sit in somebody else's email? What's the turnaround time to get a proposal out if that's what the group is asking? And so all of that needs to be qualified in this sales process. And we like it down to the time frame. Within 24 hours, we get a proposal out or a phone call goes out to that organization. It's just good to think about, how do you do it now? Is it working? Is it not working? And how can you make it better?
Good. Thanks, Larry. So just as an example, going back to this retail store called Peepers, the low vision store that's part of Lighthouse. So a key part of their sales plan, in their business plan, was hiring a business development manager. This is a woman who they actually hired. And of course, they had to raise, as part of their startup capital, enough dollars to be able to build into their budget to actually hire this individual. But again, thinking about it in terms of your own earned income possibilities, if you have a consulting business, if you have a business that's going to sell training to other organizations, other nonprofits, businesses out there, who's actually going to do that business development and sales? Oftentimes your own team is stretched. And so to think about utilizing those folks who are existing in the organization might be challenging. Also, you have to ask the question, even if you do have some available staff who could do it, are they seasoned and experienced at sales and business development? And if not, thinking about what that would look like. So again, just an example of how a salesperson could become a critical part of your business plan. Okay, let's move on to financials, the last section we'll talk about in the business plan. So Larry, over to you.
Great. And I know most of you, the financial is the most exciting part of the business plan, not. But we'll dive in right now and talk about how important it is for the business plan. It might not be the most exciting piece to do, but it's important. So all your income and all your expenses need to be in the business plan. And we dive deep into every single expense we could possibly think of needs to be attributed to the business, which is a push for some organizations, because sometimes they don't allocate all their staff time to a project. And we really do want the business to have all the income and all the expenses and show a profit margin. But it includes a revenue forecast, all of your personnel, the budget. We do 3 years of a budget. Sometimes, organizations would do maybe a 4th year, but if it's a brand new startup business, it's pretty difficult to budget out 3 years, let alone coming up with a 4th year. Things change and evolve during the first year, and your budget would change and evolve. And it includes a profit and loss statement. So what's the purpose? You guys have done budgets forever. So it's, but for a business plan, there's a couple of reasons to understand your projected revenue, expenses, and profitability. And we hope to see profitability, if not the first year, the second year. To inform the decision-making process as you move forward and as your organization grows. What usually happens is, as you're putting the business together, you realize how your organization might need to evolve in year 2 or year 3 as this business grows, as you add staff, as it might impact other components of your organization. And, to seek startup capital and growth capital. There are almost 100% of the business plans that we have done, there's a need for some type of startup or growth capital to cover staff, to cover, marketing or sales expenses, stuff that you might have to get, technology, those kinds of things to get this business off the ground or to grow it. So those are the threefold reasons why and how you can leverage your financials in a business plan. So let's just look. In Live Plan, this is just a printout, which would end up in the executive summary. The organization that I'm going to just briefly talk about, and it's a very simple budget. We didn't want to throw anything that was pages and pages at you at the end of this workshop. So it's a simple consulting practice that a very small organization was creating. So you can see their revenue, their expenses, and their net profit. And thank goodness they didn't show a loss. Sometimes, in the first year you might show a loss, but in this case they didn't. So what they're selling in revenue is hours. As they were thinking about their consulting business, there's a couple of ways to think about consulting. You could look at it as a project basis, or you could look at it as hours. And what they were doing was selling hours. How many hours? They were going to sell $40,000 worth of hours in that first year, doubling it in the second year and turning it into 120,000 in year 2. The other revenue that they were showing was some startup funding, and they needed $11,000 in startup funding. So they were going to show a revenue of $51,000 in the first year. Very simple revenue forecast. Many times we see, 8 or 9 or 10 lines, separate revenue lines, depending on your business. Personnel. Again, a very small organization, small consultancy, and they were using a blended rate. So they had 2 or 3 different staff people. They didn't exactly know who would be working on each project. So they took the staff dollar amount, blended it together, and came up with a dollar amount that would work depending on how many hours they sold. So they knew the staff would kind of trade off and work on different projects. They were making a bit of a different rate. So they blended that rate and they came up with their expenses for personnel in year 1, year 2, and year 3. They also needed a statistician, a very small amount of time from a statistician, and they built that in. That would be actually a contractor. So just looking at their overall expenses, including their salary, they had about, 37,000, dropping it down to 30,000 and then increasing to 40,000. The reason their operating expenses were a bit higher in year 1 as opposed to year 2 is because they had some startup capital, some marketing and promotions. And as you can see, they included some overhead rate in for that first year, and they had a very large technology line item that they needed to buy some computers and things for staff. Then they showed a profit and loss statement. So they, showed a modest profit in year 1 up to $80,000 in year 3. And they actually, this was their plan in their business plan. This isn't their operating budget. So you have to kind of think about that a bit separately. This was the plan. They actually exceeded these numbers in their sales each one of the 3 years. So their income projections were higher than this. And now think about those income projections. You have a small agency, and in year 2, they had $50,000 in unallocated resources. Their board could make decisions on how are we going to use those funds. Whether it's coming a part of the organization that we have to do fundraising for, or to do something new, or to wrap it back into this consultancy and grow it even larger in year 4 and year 5. So that's a bit about, I think that's the last. So the financials, it's maybe too early for you to project your financials. Some of you are already doing the business, so you can, you already have financials. You don't have a business plan around those financials, so it still might be a bit too early to project out. It's important to consider those questions now. Kind of, is your financial accounting system up for earned income? So think about that system you're using now, whether it's QuickBooks or something else. Do you currently track revenue and expenses by program? Because it's important that you would need to track by program if you're doing earned income, so you can show that you're actually creating a profit margin. Does that include tracking staff hours by project? I know I've had conversations with a few of you that you do track staff hours by project. It's really important to do that in an earned income business, because you want to make sure that all of your staff time is being allocated and tracked, because if you're putting way more staff time into it than you're charging, then you don't know if you're actually making a profit margin or not. And do you know your organizational overhead rate? It's important because we build an overhead rate into the expense budget, whatever that percentage might be, and it varies depending on each organization. Talk to your tax advisor, or if you're fortunate to have somebody on staff that's doing your taxes for you, talk to them about that, what that overhead rate might be. So, and there's a worksheet where we ask you a few of these questions, nothing deep. We're not asking for any financials at all. We just want to know, do you do these three things and what they might be? So that's the financials. And this is probably how you're feeling right now, just a bit exhausted after hearing Mike and I talk for almost an hour and a half straight. But there was a lot of content, and you can relax a bit now. We're almost done, and I think we'll wrap it up. First of all, Mike, do you want to open it up?
Yeah.
Any questions before we kind of wrap it up? Any questions about financials, or maybe the last section or two? Any hands? No? All of you are probably the most in tune with the financial section. So, all right. Mike. That's the basics, really, of business planning. Those are the different sections. And thank you for hanging out with us for the past 4 months. You can't quite get rid of us yet, because we all have another call with you in just a couple of weeks. Your homework is to jumpstart that business plan. So we kind of like to know, what are you going to sell? Try to articulate it the best you can. Who are your key customers? Who's your competition? Create a bit of a draft value proposition. Do a bit about the marketplace, business goals, how will you market, how will you sell, and projected revenue and expense. So there's a few questions in each one of these, not a lot of homework, but we're excited to have that next call with you to talk about that business opportunity that you might have and how it might help your organization move forward. So next steps, complete and submit the follow-up survey, which Betsy will send out to you, and it might even be up in the chat box. The worksheets and email to us, to Mike and I, prior to the one-on-one consulting session. And I have to say, a couple of you got yours in about a week and a half early to me, and that was like a thumbs up. Some of you I had to call. Participate in our one-on-one Zoom consulting session with us, and we actually really like that time. Hopefully it's been helpful for you and beneficial for you. Mike and I have got some pretty good feedback. So we should have already confirmed our date and our time. If it hasn't been yet, please reach out to either Mike or I, and we'll do that. So we met all these goals, focused on your organization, understanding earned income, gained some knowledge, hopefully acquired some tools, some resources like Live Plan, and apply it to your organization. So congrats. We're done with our learning portion of Social Enterprise Accelerator, and just really congratulate all of you for hanging in with us, participating in the labs, doing all the homework, not done yet. And we look forward to our next calls. So you're the family, you're the SCA family for this year, and we're so thankful for that. So any parting comments or thoughts or words of wisdom for the rest of the group? You all have words of wisdom. Come on.
All right, well, then everybody gets 3 minutes to go and do what you need to do. And we're gonna hang around for a few minutes afterwards. So if you want to stay with us, feel free. Otherwise, thanks to all of you, and we'll see you during our next Zoom consulting session. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.